what does esteemed audience need to know to run out and purchase their copy of the Antidote? Or you know what, they could be adding it to their cart on the device, probably, if they're listening to us on.
Sure. So the idea for this story came when I was a volunteer in my middle schooler's science class, and I volunteered there regularly. But the class I was really looking forward to was the chicken wing dissection class, and I knew I could contribute to this. And I went ready to go, and I showed them the bones and the muscles and the tendons and how it all worked and how little thin strips of tissue were doing it all. And I put it in their hand and I made them do it. And I was so excited. And they were pretty excited, but they weren't really that excited. And about the same time, because I volunteered in the classroom a lot, they were also studying mythology. But they all knew everything there was to know about mythology because they had read The Lightning Thief, Rick Riordan, The Lightning Thief. And so they knew everything. My kids included, they loved the stories. And so I had this idea then that I wish that they knew as much about the human body as they do about mythology, and how can we make the human body a little bit more exciting. So that's sort of the seed of the idea for the story. But the story is about 12-year-old Alex Revelstoke, who can see disease. And he can see not just disease, but injury, illness, anything wrong with the body. A child next to him at school chokes on a hot dog, and Alex can see it. His skin falls away. And then you can see the trachea with the hot dog chunk wedged there, blocking off his windpipe. And Alex, this is all new for him. He's horrified, he's shocked, he's revolted. But it also explains how all the kids always thought he was a little bit weird, and he's always been a loner, and he's been ostracized. And it turns out it's a family gift, and he has it. And the Revelstokes don't just have this family gift. They've also been fighting ill, who is an ancient evil and the creator of and the embodiment of all disease. And ill has come now with a final super disease, and Alex is the last Revelstoke, and he has to somehow save the world from this last super disease. There's an antidote that's been eked out by generations of Revelstokes, and Alex has to choose: is he going to use it to save his dog or his new friend Penelope? Is he going to save himself? And you don't want to know what happens to the antidote. But in the story, woven in there are diseases that kids can encounter, like appendicitis or a heart attack. A lot of people's grandparents have had heart attacks, or someone in their family had an ulcer. Even young athletes and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, where you'll have a collapse of a young athlete, that's in there. So I put little Easter eggs in there, like how to use an AED, an automated external defibrillator, how to do a Heimlich maneuver when the boy chokes on the hot dog. But also woven in there are diseases of the past, like plague and Spanish flu, and the measles, which is not always the past now, unfortunately, and leprosy, polio. And so a little bit of history and these past pandemics. And past pandemics were as bad as what we've got now. You know, polio, people stayed in the summer. Children were terrified around the whole world. And businesses were closed, and theaters were closed, and swimming pools were closed, and you couldn't go to your neighbors. And so and of course, Spanish flu was very similar to what we have now. And so these are in the book as well. And it just was lucky or unlucky timing. The book was written before COVID, but became incredibly timely right now. So kids can see these pandemics of the past and see how science got us out of it. And we can see how science is getting us out now.
It's hard for me to imagine pandemics when everybody's living, in a one-room cabin or less space, and nobody's got Netflix, nobody's delivering, no video games haven't been invented. That just sounds miserable. Most of the population's illiterate.
Yet nobody knew how it happened. They didn't know about viruses or whatever it was, bacteria or viruses, whatever it was that was passing it. They had no idea. And so add another element of terrible fear. At least now we know what causes it.
Well, I want to ask you why people aren't behaving as responsibly as pandemics past, because who knows the answer to that?
And I have to say, when I did some research for this, people didn't always behave responsibly in pandemics past either. It is unfortunate, I agree.
It's one of those things where if you're not living in the information age, there's maybe a little bit more grace that I'm willing to extend. Because, hey, how were you supposed to know? You didn't even have a library in your town. Fair enough. But now you've got more information on your phone than anyone has ever had in the history of the world. It's right there. But so is a lot of misinformation, so who knows? But keeping with the book a little bit, I was curious as I read it. Are you a fan of Odd Thomas, the Dean Koontz character?
I don't think I am then. No.
Oh, good news. I have a series to recommend to you.
Excellent. I have a pencil.
Just the way that Alex sees the diseases reminded me a little bit of Odd Thomas and some of that same joy. But I'll leave you to discover that joy your own. But I wondered, is this sort of a doctor's fantasy to be able to see disease this plainly and this obvious? You don't need to write things down in the night if you could just see it plainly. Dr. House's episodes would be wrapped up in 5-10 minutes. He'd be sad.
My mom, who's no longer with us, she always said, I wish I had a zipper and you could just unzip me and take a look and then tell me what was wrong. So yes, wouldn't that be something? And in the story, the family of Revelstokes, going back generations, going back centuries, they've all been doctors, they've all been healers, and some have the gift and some don't. But yeah, it'd be a lot easier if you had the gift. You are right about that.
Do you think there are people who have gifts like that? Not obviously quite to the fantastic degree, but like, I don't know, say a low grade telepathy, telekinesis, something along those lines.
So when I was researching the book, I have this dog in the book, Valentine. He's a very special dog. And animals, as you know, have tremendous abilities that we don't. Like an animal can sense your hormone levels, for instance, and it can maybe smell things that you're putting out through your pores, or it can smell your breath or your urine, for instance, how they detect lung cancer or bladder cancer. But what's coming through your pores, maybe they can detect that you've got low blood sugar if you're a diabetic, and then they give you a signal so that you eat something. They can detect changes, you're going to have a seizure. And dogs aren't the only ones. Lots and lots of animals have incredible senses. So it stands to reason, I think, that if animals, all kinds of animals, have amazing abilities, probably there are some people who do too. I've never known one. And my kids have no special abilities like Alex in the book. And my dogs have never been able to do diddly squat except shake drool onto the ceiling. That's it. They're very slobbery.
That's why you were putting up with the bad breath and the...
They're very, very slobbery. Yep.
You put up with that if they can diagnose disease ahead of time. Well, fair enough. That's a good trade.